Salam dostlar, salam əziz Agile Rako izləyiciləri və Agile sevərlər. Sizi növbəti podkastımıza salamlayırıq. Bugünkü görüşümüzdə biz Agile dünyasında tez-tez səsləndirilən istifadəçi hekayələri, yəni user storylərdən danışacağıq. User storylərin biznesdə əhəmiyyəti, düzgün, güclü user storyləri yazmağın və icra etməyin yollarından, eyni zamanda user storyləri icra edən zaman ən çox qarşılaşdığımız problemlərdən danışacağıq. Qonağımız Perulu Agile və DevOps üzrə lead coach, yəni baş coachdur. Jorge Castro. Hi, Jorge.
Hi, Ismail.
Nice to meet you at our podcast. Thank you for accepting our invitation and your, interest, keenness to share what you know with our subscribers and listeners.
Sure, absolutely. I'm very happy to be here with the listeners. I'm very happy to be here with you. So, yeah.
As I just follow your activities regarding agile and technical DevOps coaching and your recommendations to people on formulating good user stories, implementing them in the proper way. I would kindly ask you to focus on this topic during this podcast. But first of all, I would kindly ask you to give a brief introduction about yourself to make sure that our subscribers, listeners, to know you better.
Sure, absolutely. Well, my name is Jorge Castro. I am from Lima, Peru, in South America. I'm very happy to be here. Thank you very much for the invitation. About my experience, I have more or less more than 10 years of working experience in IT business. I've worked for different companies, telecommunication companies, banks, IT consultancy companies, and so forth. In small companies and also in large enterprises. And in all my career, I played different roles. At the beginning, I started working as a developer, then as a tester, then as a program manager, and currently I'm working as an lead Agile coach, focused on some Agile and DevOps transformation programs for large enterprises. So that is my summary. And also, I like sharing, as you said, I like sharing knowledge. So that is why I try to participate in different podcasts or meetups or events, sharing what I know and also learning from people. That is what I love.
Yes, the key point we have in common is our eagerness to share. And without waiting something, as a response. So thank you for your introduction, Jorge. As our main topic, I would first of all like you to speak about what is user story and why do we need a strong user story for our business to run smooth.
Absolutely. I think from to me, a user story is a conversation, basically, right? It's a kind of agreement, a kind of alignment, right? About some specific need, right? A business need or something like that. So that is what a user story is to me, right? A conversation and also an alignment between people about a specific need, a specific problem, a specific situation.
Especially between customer and supplier. Which is
absolutely.
The heart of Agile.
Yeah, absolutely. A user need, right? A business need, So that is what a user story is to me. I think those are critical because I like the mindset of Simon Sinek about you need to start with a why, right? What is the why of your business or your achievement or your project, right? So I strongly believe on that, and in my experience, the why for our development business is we start with a user story, right? This is our why. What is the problem? What is the situation that we need to cover, that we need to fix? So that is I consider that is quite important.
That's a very perfect point. The question why is the simplest question I have ever heard, but it's the most complex point that everybody starts to authentically ask yourself why I'm doing this. Why it is expected from me? It's very complex, difficult. You're stuck here. Why I'm doing this? A human being is inclined to do anything just with the first idea that comes to his mind. So a person is not does not prefer to ask why questions, to go to the root, to understand, perceive the essence of the topic, just going from the surface. Please, sorry for interruption. Go ahead.
No, it's okay. I totally agree with that. Actually, in my experience, it's quite important for my teams and with my clients to try to work in different workshops, in different structured conversations about the needs, right? Because we need to be aligned with our customers and our development teams about what is the problem, and what is the most accurate solution for that problem, right? And when I say accurate, I'm talking about a good user story, a good definition of ready, technology as well, and so forth, right? Because we need to be very efficient in terms of costs, in terms of times, and quality, right? So that is what we are looking for. We as developers, and also we are looking that for our clients and customers. So yeah, I think that is why user stories are quite important, right? Because this is a why, right? This is what you're going to use to drive your development, right?
Yeah, exactly. But why do we need strong or invest user stories? Because we can take any requirement and implement this as we understand, or I like this one terminology from PMI ACP book, Gulf of Evaluation. You told one thing I understand as I understand it, and implement it. Why do we need a strong user story, invest user story?
Because I think at least in Agile, what we are looking in Agile is try to build stuff, right, which has the best quality, can guarantee the best customer experience, right, in short cycles, which is a challenge, right? So I think that is why it's quite important to have this conversation with your customers in terms of, okay, we can prepare documentation. I think that is something great that it can help you, right? But more important than that is try to be aligned in terms of what we need. What is our first deliverable, right? What is our first goal in short iteration,
Good. I think that there would not be a better definition rather than the one you uttered. The ensure quality in a short cycle with what the customer really needs. So that's the very important point that sometimes we miss. About when thinking about user stories or just customer requirements. So Jorge, can you please, as our subscribers include product owners, business analysts, developers as well, I would kindly ask you to give your preference regarding how to write, for example, strong user stories, proper user stories, like I don't know, maybe like a technique or like an approach or etc. Just your recommendation.
Well, I have a couple of recommendations actually. I think one recommendation is try to do the exercise to write or to verify or double check user stories with the team, right? And when I say team, I'm talking about the Scrum team or the Agile team, the developers, the tester involved, and so forth. With the product owner, of course, and if you can involve some stakeholders, that would be great, right? To try to work together with them. I think that is quite important. In some experiences, I noticed that there are some specific people, a specific person to have the challenge to have the responsibility to write user stories. But I think that is not the accurate way, right? User stories is a kind of conversation team exercise, So I think that is my first recommendation. And about techniques, there is one technique that I love, which is example mapping. Example mapping is a very nice technique. It's part of behavior-driven development. Behavior-driven development recommends to use example mapping for make user stories strong, right? Make user stories better for the development and the testing of the products, aligned to what the customer is looking for. So, for example, if you have this exercise during your sprints where you need to look your user stories, you need to refine your user stories, check the definition of ready, and so forth. I would recommend to use example mapping, right? Which is basically a way to structure your conversation about user stories, where you define user stories, you define
like
the rules. Yes.
Start from
you define
one step to. Okay. Can you kind of ask you to how to say pronounce to speak about these steps briefly? How can we start it? Yeah, please.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the first step is you need to have at least a kind of a set of user stories. Some user stories. You need to define some user stories. You need to define some acceptance criteria or business rules of those user stories. I think that is the basic thing. You need to, of course, to get that, you need to get involved with your business, right? You have meeting with your stakeholders and so forth. But then you need to, as a product owner, or an analyst, or a person that is working with business, you need to work with your team. Yeah, as an Agile team, you need to work with your team to, explain those user stories with the business rules. And after that, you need to, or your team as a whole needs to start to question about it, right? And basically, the main question is, okay, what is an example of that business rules, right? So, for example, right, let me give you an example. So imagine that you're a bank, right? Some of you have a user story like something like this, right? You need to have, I need a system to manage all the accounts of some particular customers, right? You need to see the accounts, you need to edit accounts, you need to get some reports from those accounts, bank accounts from your customers. Imagine that is the user story, a group of user stories. Okay. One business rule can be only the user with those privileges can see that information in some specific windows, for example, right? Or other rule can be you can only get some reports from this year to this year. That is a business rule, right? But then with your team in place, working together, the tester is going to have some questions, right? And also the developer about it. So for example, a tester can say, okay, I understand the rule, but what about the accounts that are not active? I can see information as well or not. Okay, that's a good point, right? So let's prepare an example of that. Or what happens if I enter to the system and I look for, or I try to get a report from an account that is not active. Okay, that is a situation, a scenario of this story. But then the developer can say, okay, I understand, but what about if in the search, right, I can see the entire information from the beginning of the system until now, because that is a lot of information, right? It can cause some problems. Or maybe I need to limitate, or I need to, manage the information only for some specific years, right?
Okay.
Maybe from the 90s until now. That can be also a question, right? So that is also another example of behavior of that story, of that business rules.
Okay, this example mapping is a technique that, how to say, encompass the overall refinement grooming process. So from from introducing the user story business requirement through just how to say giving its acceptance criteria and other test scenarios, etc.
Yes.
Until everybody are aligned and everybody are agreed on all details, and are ready. The user story is ready for estimation, right?
Yes. Yes, actually, that is the main purpose of the grooming session, right? Because at the end, example mapping, you can use example mapping as a grooming for your grooming session, right?
Good.
Basically, that is the idea. And basically, the main goal is that, right? To produce the alignment between the three amigos or the tres amigos, the product owner, the development team, the tester, the developer, the tester, the agile team. To start to develop and test the story, right, during the sprint. And basically, that is the main goal.
By the way, I like that terminology, three amigos, about this, as you told, product owners, developers, and testers. So it's like a Latin word just brought by Agile for this technique. So thank you, Jorge. But what's your key recommendations while using this technique, or just generally doing user story backlog grooming? Which points do these three amigos have to consider while doing this process, running this process? What key points we have to keep in mind while doing it?
Okay, the first one is about the detail, right? Because in those kind of sessions, you have the developers and the testers and the BI analysts, or all the agile team, right, working together. So in some cases, people can ask a lot of questions, right? Ask question, and you can get too much detail. And that is not the goal, right? The goal is basically alignment about the business needs. I think that is the main point. The main point. So be careful about that, right? If you are the Scrum Master in that session, you need to facilitate the event in terms of, okay, team, our goal is to understand what is the business goal, right? We can share examples and so forth, but imagine something like but in this field we can enter only negative numbers, or what about this? So those examples are good, but are examples more for the testing part, right, during the sprint. It's not about it's not something that is going to help you to understand the business problem, right? So I recommend that
to be sure that no one at the meeting and in the team have no unclear points regarding the business. Good.
Yeah, that is one, right? That is one recommendation. And the other one is the strategy. Gizmat. I think if you have all the amigos here, it's very useful, because you have the testing experience, you have that development experience. If you have UX UI in your team also as well, right? You have different points of views about the problem, about the needs, and I think that is very richful for your process. I think that is quite important, and for me it's strategic, because if you want to have a more a better process, I think you need to have this kind of point of views to define the example.
Holistic view, challenging the topic from different perspectives, not only just the business perspective. That's a very perfect point.
The last point is about the strategy, because as I said at the beginning, example mapping is part of BDD, right? Behavior-driven development. And I like behavior-driven development because, behavior-driven development has 3 stages. The first one is the discovery part, which is basically the example mapping, right? You need to do the alignment, discover what is the needs, and create examples. The other stage of BDD, is the formulation. You need to formulate what your examples using, for example, Gherkin, right? You need to write your examples, your test scenarios, and so forth with Gherkin or in the code, for example, right? And the third step is the automation. And in this automation part, you can take your Gherkin scenarios, or, and use, for example, Cucumber or Serenity BDD to automate those functional tests and run them as part of your automated functional tests, right? Or automated acceptance tests. And those can be also then running in the pipeline DevOps. So for me, that is a strategic part, right? Because it's not about the grooming part, but you have the entire picture of your cycle, right? Yeah,
Yeah,
the big
you have
picture.
to see the big picture to place the refinement part to the how to say proper place, to like a puzzle piece. So thank you for just how to say precise, concrete, and how to say broad explanation regarding this topic. So finally, if okay, I would kindly ask you to speak about just finally about common challenges or dysfunctions regarding creating user stories and implementing them. What are the most common, how to say, problems we face in our daily life while just handling user stories?
Well, number one, lack of MVP mindset, right? I noticed that sometimes, unfortunately, we take the big project as it is, and we try to put it in the backlog as it is, without any refinement.
Like
without,
incremental waterfall. Yeah, I like this term.
Yeah. Actually, I think that is something that we need to work on. So that is why I think we need to enforce our MVP mindset, right? And also our MVP practices as well. We can use inception deck, user story mapping, design thinking, whatever technique that we can use, right, for try to slice or reduce this first approach, to try to create these different approaches to share, to deliver business to our customers. I think that is one. We need to work on that MVP part. And I am talking about before the sprint planning and all and that stuff, right?
I know.
Before that,
just like release planning or product planning.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that is part of a portfolio, right? But also is part of, to try to think on MVP, right? I mean, what is the most easy piece of functionality that I can deliver to my customers, right? That is one. Number two is that unfortunately, sometimes I notice that user story seems to be the responsibility of only one person. In some cases, the product owner, right? I noticed that. And I think for me, that is not a good practice. For me, you need to work in user story with your amigos. I think that is the best approach. Because you can have a really nice and a good product owner. You can have that, right? A very good product owner, but the product owner has only one vision of the problem, right? But what about the testing part? What about the UX part? What about
exactly? Sometimes teams say that product owner asked this one and I give it, but they just don't think about challenging the topic, adding something to it, enriching it, making improving to get better or richer results. So that's the problem. You're right.
Yeah. And number three is Matt. In my experience, I know that there are some people that don't like the term technical user story. I know that there are people that they don't believe on that. They think that this is a kind of anti-pattern or something like that. But in my experience, to be practical, to be real practical, in my experience, I had a chance to work with different teams, right? Product teams, business teams, but also with enablement teams, right? Integration teams, which are in charge of APIs or REST services, right? And also teams in charge of mainframe or some legacy products. And those teams exist. they work as well. And they want to become more agile. So I think those teams can do that. In some cases, the user story can be some kind of technical, for example, right? They can talk about APIs or create an API, something like that. But you can work with them as well. You can apply example mapping as well. Because at the end, if you are going to develop an API, the API has a specific business purpose, right? Some specific situation, and there is business behind that, the API. So my recommendation number 3 is you can move all your knowledge about example mapping or invest user stories and all the stuff that we know. we can put it also in your technical teams. Again, right? Enablement teams, mainframe teams, and so forth. I think that is something that is possible. You can do it. Of course, in some cases, you can work with them. You are going to have some constraints about, of course, the culture and so forth, but that is why you are an Agile coach, right? That is why you are a Scrum Master. And the other constraints is about the architecture and infrastructure. In those cases, you need to work in different initiatives, right? Microservices, cloud adoption, and so forth, right? But I think that is something possible as well.
Good. Okay, thank you, Jorge, just for, how to say, spending your valuable golden time to contribute to our initiative to promote Agile in my country and also all over the world who are interested in Agile or who are newly, how to say, coming familiar with this topic. So I liked our, how to say, podcast conversation. It was very fruitful and very beneficial. I am sure. I'm just, how to say, claiming it. And even I would just like to have another podcast on behavior-driven development. I would kindly ask you to speak about this topic broadly, to share your knowledge with us. So thank you for using your time and joining us. Thank you for, how to say, sharing your practice, what you know, and trying to contribute to our initiative.
Yeah, again, Gizmat, thank you very much to you for the opportunity to share. I strongly believe in that, in sharing. So my final message to your listeners is, please, no matter if you are in Peru, you are in France, in Germany, or whatever place in Nigeria, or whatever place you are, I think you have very nice experiences. So please share, right? I think sharing is quite important. I think it's our responsibility to share. And I think if we share, we are improving our world. You know,
sharing
I think
is
that is
caring.
quite important.
And knowledge
absolutely
increases when you share it.
Yes.
Thank you, Jorge, once again. Thank you so many. Dostlar, qonağımız xatırlatdığım kimi Perulu Agile və DevOps coach Jorge Castro idi. O bizimlə qeyd etdiyimiz kimi dəyişikliyin idarə olunması prosesinin, ümumiyyətlə müasir biznesdə tez-tez Agile dünyasında səslənən istifadəçi hekayələrin, yəni user storylərin, düzgün user storylərin yazılması, texnikalarından və user storyləri yazarsan və icra edərkən ən çox qarşılaşılan problemlərdən, səhvlərdən danışdı, öz biliklərini paylaşdı. Ümid edirəm hər birinizə faydalı olacaq. Suallarınız və ya şərhləriniz varsa mütləq qaydada videomuzun altında paylaşın. Sizin feedbackləriniz bizim, belə deyək, növbəti podkastlarımızda mövzuların seçimi və eyni zamanda keyfiyyətin artırılması üçün çox vacibdir. Çox sağ olun, gözünüzü bizdən ayırmayın.